together, right?
I
Here we
know.
go. We're on.
Okay. Hello, everybody in the Family Empowerment Now VIP group. I'm really excited to be here today. I'm really excited to have my great friend Pam Drzewiecki with us today. This is such an awesome way to kick off the entire process, Pam, for families who are really struggling with mental illness, addictions, which kind of sometimes go hand in hand, and
Mm-hmm.
even people who are struggling with Alzheimer's or any kind of dementia in their family. People who are in a position of being caregivers for a loved one, despite the fact that hey, none of us signed up for this.
Exactly.
And just so you out there in the tribe understand, Pam and I have been in personal development circles together for a long time,
Mm-hmm.
and we just had lunch a couple of months ago, maybe a month ago, I guess, and we were just chatting about everything that we're doing and what we have going on in our lives. And Pam, it really, I don't even know if I told you this, Pam, but it really hit me when you said something along the lines of, I'm not going to let this define who I am. And I'm going to, and that was like, I was like, that's exactly the place to start. And ever since you said that, I've been using that line. Do not let this mental illness define you. Do not let someone else's mental illness define you. Even if you have mental illness in your family, it does not make you a mentally ill family. It does not define who we are. We start putting these labels on ourselves, and it really makes us lose sight of how much more we are than just what that label is.
Mm-hmm.
And so I thank you for that, because you saying that during lunch that time was just stuck with me, like a bad tattoo, I guess. um, so I just I won't do it justice. So if you could just tell the audience, tell the tribe, the group here about yourself and what you do, and now what you've done, and what you've transitioned into, because it's really interesting.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks for having me here today. I always enjoy our conversations. We could talk for forever, right? We could go on and on. We have a lot of similarities in our paths that we've decided to bring our talents to people out there from everything that we've had in our lives and all the lessons that we've learned, bringing these talents to other people to help them guide themselves through difficult times. So my story is interesting. I guess I'll start on a professional side first.
Yeah, that's where I was thinking. Your
Yeah.
personal story is yours to tell however you want, or not. That's completely your call.
We'll go through that as I think our conversation develops. I could add some insight in my own personal life and the journey that I've taken to get to where I am today.
Right.
But professionally, I came from 28 years of the insurance industry. Insurance was not was not my choice. It wasn't like I said when I was younger, I want to be an insurance agent.
I know that a lot of people do.
No, but it is an interesting business in the sense that you do get the opportunity to help a lot of people find their paths and help them, basically design their dreams of what they want to happen in the future, or want to happen if something happens. It's a protection. So
that's an interesting way to look at it, because you and I we all talk a lot about the importance of having a long-term vision, sort of like having the map of how you're going to get there. And insurance, good, bad, or indifferent, does help some people realize some of that vision.
It really does, because a lot of times we would get especially during times like this, right, that we're going through, or hard times in the market or something, and people would call up and say, hey, been looking at our bills, we have to get rid of the insurance, we can't afford this, right? So I tell this story because it really helps set the groundwork of why I do what I do now and how I've developed my business. in growing from what I learned inside the insurance industry. So my conversation with them all the time would be, is okay, if we can't afford it now while you're both alive or both working, what's going to happen when a big change happens to either one of you? So maybe we need to sit down and revisit what that vision is moving forward.
Well, and there we go again with the vision concept. And just so people understand, we are actually doing this video live together now, but people watching it in the future may not understand. We are actually right in the meat and potatoes of the COVID-19 global pandemic as we speak. So you talk about people being uncertain, people, not staying in touch with their long-term vision and congruent with who they are on a deep level. And I think this is, again, the audience that we're talking to, it's more important than ever for folks who are caring for others to care for themselves, right? Care for your loved one. And in order to do that, you have to really focus on what that vision is of yourself and what your family's vision, your foundational beliefs really are. And
Absolutely. Yes.
So I know that that's a lot of the work that you do, because now in the world that we're in, and in the world that people are in every single day who are dealing with a loved one with a mental health issue, it is so tumultuous and so volatile that it's just easy to throw your hands up and throw in the towel and give in. But one of the things that you really promote, and I guess this goes back to your insurance with hey, things might be tough right now, but it's time for you to take charge of you and take back your whatever. And I know you have a big program about taking back.
Yeah, take back your life, right? Take back my life. Yes, and it all goes to that. So through my journey through working in the insurance industry, I started off as a pool secretary. Now that's dating myself, right? That's what we were called back then.
I'm going to say, we don't even use the term pool or secretary really anymore.
Secretary. My job was to help all the new agents find their way. So I could have 6, 7, 8 agents at a time working, and I was developing their systems. And here I was in my early 20s doing this, right?
Mother hen, yeah.
And it was amazing. So that's where I started. And through those 28 years, I was able to build through the process. And one of my new agents was the guy that ended up hiring me away from the agency, and I became his personal assistant.
Well, you moved up from pool secretary.
Yeah, so that's how I had that stepping stone. But again, I had to release the fear of taking that step from going from pool secretary to personal assistant, because no longer was the agency paying me. Yeah. Now, this special agent, they were called back then, the special agent was responsible for paying me. So through our lives, we have all of these things that come at us that may be fearful, and trying again to look beyond the fear of what do you want on the other side of that fear? And because fear is really false evidence appearing real, right? So we're feeling
false evidence appearing real,
right?
And people that are in this group are living with fear, anxiety, stress every single minute of every single day. And I don't know how much of that is false evidence, but a lot of it I think is, it's almost like a self-perpetuating, what do they call that? Self-perpetuating, where the more you worry, the more you stress, the more anxiety you invoke upon yourself and within your family. And so what I'm trying to impress upon people, especially through a discussion with someone like yourself, is take it all back. As you say, and I know I keep using your phrase, take back your life, because it's so important for people to say, the illness is not going to run me. It's not going to run my family. I'm in charge, and I'm taking this back.
Mm-hmm.
And how do we get there? How do we start that process? And I think that that is really important for people to not only hear that they can, they should, but they also can do this. This is something that all of us are capable of. And when life is getting them beat down so much, because of the situations that we find ourselves in now, or families are finding themselves in, you know, it's really easy to give up.
It's so easy to get drawn into the circumstances that are going on in your lives, right?
It creates this circular toilet bowl sort of cycle of
It
despair,
does.
and it's easy to go down that drain.
It
So,
is.
so did you enjoy being the personal assistant?
I do. I do. I mean, I did back then, and I think that's the reason why I thrive as a coach, because I really love helping people find what it is that they want to accomplish. So as a personal assistant, I knew what he was thinking before he knew what he was thinking, right? So I had the power to be able to guide really him in the business where it needed to go. He was amazing at doing the outside sales. That's who he was. And even when we're in family situations, understanding your role is really important, and communicating is really important. So a little side note is, during all of this time, I was getting ready to get married. Okay.
Okay.
So I was ready.
Wait a second. You don't say that like it's a good thing.
Well, I was getting ready to get married. And back then it was, I was in my early to mid 20s. It's what I needed to do. I felt community pressure, around peer pressure. Other people were doing it. If I don't do it now, when is this going to ever take place? All of these different things.
You're on the train. I know. I went through it too. You're on the train.
All this head trash around that. But I enjoyed my profession, and I had really great work ethic. My parents taught me how to work really hard, maybe not smarter, but harder. So there's some of that learning lesson that I'm still trying to understand.
Yeah, sure.
But I started working with him, took the leap of faith, walked away from the agency and went with him directly. And he was about 1.5 years in the business when I did that. So we grew that practice over those years, 14 in the history of the company. So we grew a very thriving practice based on us pushing through things that we were afraid of, right? Pushing through things that might have normally held people back, but
adversity, I guess, being number one, yeah?
Yes.
Any kind of adversity, you got to keep pushing through it if you're going to be able to get to the other side. And I guess that's true in anything. I'm not saying anything anybody doesn't know.
No, you're absolutely right. But that's a good reminder for people, right? Is that when something is adverse, I know I've learned, and I've helped my clients understand that you look at the situation and you decide, what is it that I can control here, and what is it that I can't control. What I can't control, put it over here.
And let's dive into that a bit, because we are in a situation. If you walk through this with me, here we have a family who is thrust into the world of mental illness, or addiction, or any of the things I already talked about.
Yep.
And of course, they don't have control over the fact that their son or daughter, mother, father has a mental illness. So we don't have control over that. And that's one of those things like, okay, let's put that in this box. But that having been said, I believe very firmly in taking a step back, stopping, move forward by standing still would be the first thing,
I
right?
love that.
And I really believe in some deep introspection to figure out, I can't control the mental illness, but what I can control is everything else that it's impacting in our lives.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're working with clients around their own adversities, do you start with that kind of, soul searching almost, like define who you are in order to figure out what really makes you tick?
Absolutely. I mean, that's one of the things when I started this business, I wrote a book, right? The self-discovery, the #nugget, 28 days to self-discovery. And that's a journey that I'd like them to go on, to understand who they are. Who are they really?
Right. So what does that look like? What are some of the questions that folks can start thinking about for themselves now about, who am I really? Who is my family? I'm not going to let that mental illness that we put in this box up here define who we are, but I want to get back in my own head to who we were before this mental illness hit us. So what are some of the things to, almost as an exercise, to go through in thinking that way?
One of the big things that I use as a tool is brain dumping. Literally taking the time to unload what is on your mind, like starting from there. Start with the brain dumping, because we need to unload, because especially when we're in situations with living with mental illness or with addiction, I always found, in my case was, at that point, is the man that I ended up marrying back there ended up becoming an addict. So I lived with addiction. For 16 years, we were married. So I understand that it was so important for me. Towards the end is when I started realizing that this shouldn't define me, but I didn't have the tools at that time.
Oh, that's interesting. So you really did learn. So let's take a step back here. At the time, you're young and impressionable and pie in the sky, and you fall in love, you get married to a guy, and
he got disabled.
He became disabled. He got hurt at work.
Got hurt at work, didn't have the right insurance. 6 months into our marriage, he stopped working.
Oh my gosh.
And then he got addicted to the pain pills, because it wasn't a regulated pain management system back in the early 90s, right? As much as it is today. And
well, it's not even really regulated today the way it should be. Wow. Okay. So this is really going to hit home with the people that are watching us right now, who are saying, because frankly, a lot of people who are struggling with mental illness wind up with addiction issues, and a lot of people that have addiction issues wind up dealing with mental health issues. I would say anecdotally, in the clients that I work with, thousands of clients over 20-something years, a solid 47% are going to have a dual diagnosis, meaning there's going to be an aspect of mental health and some kind of addiction. They call it comorbid, they call it dual diagnosis. There's a lot of different terms. And I'm not saying this from any scientific perspective. I'm just saying from the clients that I work with, it's probably just about half of them have some kind of dual diagnosis. So this should hit home, because holy crap, now I'm married 6 months, this guy's out of work, and within, I'm sure, a very short period of time, he's now popping pills and addicted to
within the first year. Within the first year after his diagnosis,
and you were so young and so into this whole concept of, hey, I'm getting married. You didn't have the coping skills or the real, you had to figure out how to figure this out.
And you did it.
And I think that's what people need to learn from you in this beginning process. Is how did you learn it? How did you say, I'm not going to let him define me?
It was interesting, because I don't know how much at that point did I understand what defining was. Defining for me at that particular point was, I was a wife, and I took my vows very seriously. And that was my role was to take care of him, right? In sickness or health. And
Yeah.
so
But, you know, the shame of that that hops into my head instantly is that's how you defined yourself. That was the label you put on yourself. And I know you, so I know you're so much more than that. And it makes me sad and it hurts my heart to hear you say that. And I'm sure families and parents are feeling, you know, it hurts my heart to hear them say, I'm a parent of a kid with mental illness. No, you're not. You're not, you know, you're not just a wife, Pam. You are, I mean, look at you now, and we can get to all that. But so anyway, I interrupted. Continue.
No, but thank you for that. So that was my definition. That was me defining myself at that time. So not only was I a newly married wife, wasn't making a whole lot of money because I just started off in the business.
Yeah.
He was a tile layer, so he didn't have that type of program that would pay the revenue, you know, to give money back into the house.
Right.
So there was a whole new world that came about. So here I was, wow, I'm newly married to, oh my goodness, I'm the breadwinner. My husband's disabled. He's become an addict. He's been addicted to pills. Like all of these things had changed through the process. The biggest thing is that when I'm looking back on it now, and I believe that it's a journey I was meant to take. But when I look back on it now, I see myself being very codependent, right? I see myself being a martyr. I see myself in all of those ways. Like, look at me. I do all of this. Why can you expect me to do that too when I'm dealing with this? Right?
Yeah, and I'm sure that really resonates with a lot of folks in this group that are just so overwhelmed with the care for somebody else that it consumes every aspect of your being. So that makes a lot of sense as to why you would define yourself that way.
Right. And it's real. It's definitely a real, I mean, so easy to fall into that, right? When, so over those 16 years together, there was a lot of stuff that went on. Now, side note, we had a house that was a duplex, and on the left-hand side of the duplex was my mother-in-law and my husband's mentally handicapped sister. So there was a lot of dynamic that I'm sure your audience could definitely relate to, is that not only we have the addiction, but we have the mental illness too. And good people, just bad circumstances.
Yeah.
Right?
Bad things happen to good people.
And that's what it was.
So at some point, and I'd like to tell some of the stories, I guess, about what you were going through, but at some point you had to have some sort of awakening, or, I mean, I bet you wish you had somebody say to you, all right, stop, stand still. Let's get deep. Let's do some soul searching and figure out who you are other than just a newlywed or a martyr or whatever other garbage you had in your brain. And it takes a lot of courage to do that, right? It takes courage to get to the point where you're even willing to go deep. So what was that like for you? How did you wind up getting there? I mean, how bad did it have to get for you to get there?
You know, it's interesting is that it was really bad for a very long time, in and out of rehabs and a whole bunch of different things. And, but what got me to the point of taking control and taking back my life was the very last time I had flew him out to Oklahoma. And this is, and I'm sure people could relate to this, that this is what you do to help this person.
Sure.
But what I understand now is that even addiction is a mental illness, is an illness, right? Of any kind of addiction. Never mind became street drugs and stuff like that. But if they're not willing to meet you, it's really hard to continue to help over and over and over again, because there's such a cycle. They feel really bad for what they did. They sprinkle the crumbs, everything's going to be okay. That goes on for a while, and then it starts again. And before you know it, 16 years have gone by and you have dealt with that process. So for me, that last time that I flew him to Oklahoma, wrote a big fat check, came back home on the plane the same day, was in work the same day. So for me, my coping mechanism through all of this, I lived in a very surreal world. I lived in a lot of denial that it was actually going on. But what helped me a lot, even through the denial, was my faith. I'm a very faith-based woman, so that really helped me a lot. Journaling helped me a lot. Going back to the brain dumping, unloading my brain.
Yeah, when you talk about the brain dumping, you're talking about almost like stream of consciousness, writing, typing, whatever. Just get it out of there.
Just get it out, and then look at it and say, okay, what's resonating with me right now? What are the top 3 things that are resonating with me?
Or holy cow, that's scaring me.
Exactly. And I use the exercise in many different ways. I use the exercise if somebody is trying to get to reach a certain goal. Let's just brain dump around what you want for that goal, and let's pick the top 3 things we're going to focus on.
Yeah, even getting yourself jacked up and ready to do that takes a certain amount of discipline, you know? And I think that, you know, people who are dealing with mental illness and people who are struggling with addiction, a woman I was having lunch with told me, she's like, I deal with this so often. It's such a part of my life that when I have 15 minutes to not think about it, the last thing I want to do is think about it. I want to get a glass of wine and chill out and veg out for a little while. I don't want to brain dump. I don't want to read. I don't want to do research. I just want to tune out. And that's completely understandable as far as I can tell.
It definitely is understandable. If we could just, if I had the support system, I think that you're providing for the people that are watching this, that would definitely have been a great tool for me to help me get there, maybe in a quicker manner than
that's what I'm hoping, is that, you know, having been working in the mental health field for so long and talking to folks like you who have lived the addiction and mental health, we want to help to speed up the process to help the families to empower themselves. And if, you know, we could say there's a couple of magic buttons that you got to push. Here's the magic button number 1. Number 1, we've already talked about. You are not defined by the mental illness. This is not your identity. Now, it took you the better part of 16, 15 years to figure that out. We don't want these people to have to go through that.
No.
You know? And many of the folks here have been living with this for 30 years. I mean, I know one woman in our group who's 35, 36 years she's been dealing with her son, and she's very strong, but not everybody's strong like that. You know, 35 years goes by in a snap, and it's like, holy cow, I want to get back to where I was 30 years ago. And I think what you're talking about is a valuable lesson for people to hear, to say, this isn't you. You're bigger than this. You're better than this. Start to think about how and why you are. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Right. And that person that says, and it's totally understandable, going through it, and then I got 5 minutes and I don't want to think about it. Yeah. Right? But thinking about it in a different manner turns into a different opportunity, right? So you're thinking about it still, but now you're not I'm going to use addicted to the drama of it, right? Yep. You're actually pivoting to a being drawn towards that light of how I can make this different.
That's a huge statement that you, and I don't, it wasn't really a state. What you just said basically really struck me, because while you're sitting there having that glass of wine for 15 minutes and saying, woe is me, holy crap, I'm tired. Thank God the house is quiet for this 15 minutes. It may be the perfect time to think differently, shift the way you're thinking in a proactive manner, as opposed to being reactive. I mean, so many of us react to all the crap that's coming at us all the time. We don't get the opportunity. And as you said, we get addicted to that drama.
We do.
Almost. We never get the opportunity to sit there and say, you know what? Okay, I got 15 minutes. It's me right now. I'm going to take, this is my time.
For me.
For me. And that's empowering in and of itself. And that's a real simple mind shift, isn't it?
I think so. I do. And that's what it was. It was like, what can I do for me right particular moment? And so as my time went on and he was away for 5 months that time, and he came back he came cleaner than probably when we were in our early 20s when we first met, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So all of a sudden when he got back, I got pregnant and then miscarried and then pregnant again right away, like 3 months later. The first time around, he was really excited. The second time he wasn't, because he was shifting again. He was shifting. So while
his demons were taking over again.
Yeah, it was happening again. And 5 months into my pregnancy is when I totally noticed that he was back to where he was, and even worse than he was when I sent him out. So my shifting, I try to think about this because I know my big shift took place when I delivered my daughter and when she was 10 months old. That was my big shift.
Well, that's a big life event. Yeah. Yeah.
You know, because then at that point, it wasn't me. It wasn't
Right.
about me at that point.
Right. But I hate to have to think that, I mean, that's a major, major life event. And I hate, you hate to think of all the scary life events that have to take place to get us to wake up sometimes.
Yeah.
Tell people the story about, I mean, just so we could talk about sort of what it was like day to day when you went to sleep at night with your pocketbook.
When I slept with my pocketbook at night.
Yeah.
I would have to sleep with my pocketbook under my pillow.
Every night.
I would lock because I had to shift it to under my pillow, because I would lock it up in the closet in our room. And I noticed, because I'm very perceptive, right? Like I start seeing things. I noticed that the pins on the door, so it didn't matter that I padlocked the door. The pins were taken off and shifted.
Oh, you mean in the hinges?
Yes.
Oh my God.
So
he was just going in there to get your wallet to get money to go buy drugs.
And then he would put it back, and then I would be like, I know I had $40.
Wow.
And so there was a lot of mental head games going on, trying to keep up with what he was going through, right?
But I think that's more relatable to a lot of folks than, I guess everybody can relate to, hey, I had a child and that changed my life, of course.
Yeah.
But it can even be smaller things, and that's not really a small thing, but along the way, during this journey of yours, this nightmarish journey.
Right.
I mean, there were a lot of things that were going on that people looking back at it said, what the hell's the matter with you, Pam? He was taking the hinges out of the door to get at that's crazy. Why didn't you do something about it, Pam? Why didn't you do something about your kid that slams the door on you every time you try to talk to them and go to the room? How about the kid that doesn't respect you or want to talk to you in your own house? There's a lot of people that live in fear of their loved ones. There's a lot of people that live in fear of what life is going to be like if they confront their husband with addiction. And so I guess the question then becomes, all right, so number one, Pam, why the hell didn't you do something about it? And then number two question, and I'm not just asking these rhetorically, I'm saying, why didn't you do something about it? And two, what did it take for you to finally and I'm not talking about the actual birth of your daughter, I'm talking about the mind process that got you to the point where you said, okay, I'm going to do something, and here's how I'm going to do it, and here's the courage that I'm going to give myself to do it.
Mm. Well, the first thing is the reason why I didn't do it was it goes back to that mindset that I had of defining who I was back in the beginning when I was first married. That stayed with me all through those years, right? Even though now I was not only the breadwinner, I was still the wife coming home, making dinner, getting it on the table, doing all of that. He had a dog training business for a while. He was very good at that, but I ran his business for him because he wasn't, he acted like he wasn't capable of it. So it just defined me and that's the reason why I stayed. It was like, and then the other reason why I stayed was if I leave, what's going to happen to him?
Mm.
I took on that as a responsibility. Like, what is going to happen if I'm not here?
Well, that's a very real fear that a lot of people have. A lot of people who love people. You know, if I'm not around anymore, what's going to happen to so-and-so? If we're not around anymore, what's going to happen to my son or daughter? And that's a very real fear that a lot of people carry around with them for a long time. And that fear alone, I think, dictates how you will live your life in some respect.
Absolutely. It definitely, that fear is what you base your decisions on.
Yeah.
Right.
That's a big one. I had a client one time who hired me to help out with her sister, and her parents were in their late 90s, both of them, 95, 96. And I remember this woman said to me, I swear my parents are only staying alive because they're afraid of what will happen to my sister if they're not around. I was like, wow, that is just heart-wrenching, right?
It is heart-wrenching. And so it goes back to creating the vision of what it is that you want, that it's not selfish. I think that was the hardest thing is understanding that it wasn't selfish, that I might have wanted a better life or a different life.
That's powerful.
And that's what happened is that I finally got to the point where I was like, okay, I started thinking, it was like, I was working really, I was doing extremely well at that point. I had gone from, pool secretary. At this point, I was like director of marketing of the firm that I had grown and stuff. So I was doing extremely well. But I had dual lives, like I would show up at work and then I'd come home and I'd be dealing with sleeping with my pocketbook, leaving at. So I created this dual life. And what ended up happening was little at a time, I'm like, I can't, I just could not do it anymore. And I had to start understanding whatever happened was going to happen, right? Like I could get it in place, but I still had no control over what was actually going to happen because he had to make those, decisions on his own. Now, if he was a child of mine, that is difficult because I see it with the grandfather of my ex-husband, like my ex-husband's father, and the sister who's mentally handicapped. Yeah. I see that with them, that the decisions aren't being made to be really healthy for going forward. Up, she lived with her mother all those times. We finally got the mom to allow her to get her own apartment. She did amazing. Was that scary? Absolutely. But again, it was something that had to be done in order to make the situation better for everybody.
So that's an interesting way to say it because it's almost self-preservation on the one hand, and it's also letting the bird fly kind of a thing.
Yes.
And there's a lot of value to that too. And I love your idea of how you were living two lives because so many people I talk to say the same thing. I'm out here working, I'm going to work, and nobody at work understands what I've got to deal with when I get home, or the fear when I'm driving home of what I'm going to get when I get there.
Yeah.
When I wake up in the morning, is my pocketbook going to be gone? right? I mean, those are very real things. And I just, the reason that you're so compelling is because not only did you at some point say enough is enough and get that gumption, right? And I want to know what that feels like or what that looks like to you. But now you're also teaching and telling other people about that, and how you do that is interesting to me. And because again, if we can really cut down through this curve that some folks are going through with this endless cycle of ups and down and anxiety and stress, that's what this is all about.
It
so
is.
What are your
it's
thoughts
like,
as far as that goes?
it's like getting rid of the bread and let's just look at it as what it is. It is what it is, right? What is it right now? Truly, let's take all the rose-colored glasses off, right? Oh, yep, everything's perfect, whatever. Take those, look at the whole situation as it is. And what started shifting me is when I was carrying at 5 months. Now, that was my big shift. Smaller shifts had been happening over those past 2 years.
Yeah.
I said I lived in that duplex. I lived there for 14 years. And then I started taking the reins and saying, I'm not living here anymore. I need my own house. I need my own space. And
that's it.
That was the step of the start. You coming with me? I would love for you to be with me. If not, I'm going. Either way. I had to start standing my ground. And that's when that shift started happening, is that I moved us away from that, thinking that it was going to be better, and it got worse. But it got worse for the better. Does that make sense?
Well, it got worse, yes, because it got better for you because it helped you to get strong, still being stronger. And I get what you mean. So whatever the first step may be, in terms of the actual step, the first process is to, as we say, take some introspective time to figure out what it is that you really want and what is it going to take you to get to what you want. So that would be number one. And that takes courage, no question about it.
It does.
And then the second bit of courage is to now get into action, right? And your form of action was, hey, I'm leaving. You're welcome to come, but I'm out. Whether it winds up being the right decision or the wrong decision, you went into it with all the right intentions.
That's an important part there, Mike. That's a
huge thing, because I think a lot of folks just get so stuck in that cycle that you were describing before that they get afraid to break out of it. They get afraid to make a decision that may anger somebody or may be the wrong decision. But if you're going at things and you're making a decision that's the right decision for you and what you believe to be the right decision for your family, your new unborn baby, and you're doing it with all the right intentions, from the goodness of your heart, from the bottom of your stomach, whatever the saying is, it can't be a wrong decision.
No, because you can make shifts along the way to make it the way. It's a constant shifting. So when she was 10 months old, and it finally was like getting phone calls from friends because he was born information for her, and just a whole bunch of different things. It finally was, that's it. You need to leave. You need to leave. At that point, she was 10 months old. Fast forward, she's now 13, and I'm remarried for 9 years now. Absolutely amazing. But 5 years into this marriage I am now, still communicating with me on a daily basis.
Really?
Via text or leaving me messages at work. Finally, again, a new boundary had to be set. You're not married to me anymore, right? So we have to keep on, biggest thing is keep on looking at it. Things might be changing, doesn't mean that they're not going to try to get back in, because, and I'm not just talking people, I'm talking up here, our own thoughts around it.
Right. Yeah.
Because if we're conditioned to think that way and to take care of people that way, it's not a flip of the switch. Well, I don't care anymore and I'm not going to do it. Right?
And
So
I think that what's interesting is you've developed almost a process of how to work that muscle, because that is what it is. It's exercising that. It's continuous exercise. It's going through that motion of reminding yourself, maybe catching yourself before you fall, and that is vitally important to a lot of people, that they exercise that muscle, that they have that strength. Once they find it, once they find the strength, they've got to maintain the strength, right?
That's exactly what it is. You have to. It really needs to be aligning yourself all the time. The reason why you finally made that big decision. So as you recognize it, right? You give yourself permission. Give yourself permission to make a decision, allowing yourself to make that decision. Okay? Then you hesitate for a moment around it, so you could really take it all in. Because I use the term a lot that hesitation stalls the momentum, right? So if we hesitate before we take the next step, it's going to allow us to rethink everything that we want to think about, right? So that's kind of like that gathering it back around. Let's hesitate. And then you go
want to hesitate. You do want to take a step back from this process.
You do. Yeah. You do. You want to take a step back, especially when, the biggest thing for me was breaking free from the drama of it. Like, I wonder what he's up to. Oh my God, did he get arrested again? Like, right? Like all of this. And I needed to take a step back from that, hesitate, to say to myself, okay, this is what I recognized when I felt healthy, right? When I felt healthy, this is what I recognized. This is what I gave myself permission to do. My permission was to leave. That was my permission in my case, right? Then I hesitate if it comes back in. I hesitate if I get that phone call or whatever. Reevaluate myself and then go back into recovery mode of the healthy recovery where I am. So it's interesting, Mike, because this is a process I've been using for myself for a very long time. And the other day I was on a call with a coaching client, and I was doing more leadership coaching with them, taking them from owner, founder of their business to stop being a doer to being a leader. And it's kind of the same like, yes. This is the same thing that we could use is when I'm creating leaders, I have them brain dump, write a list of everything that's below their pay grade. Right. Okay? Let's see what's below your pay grade and see what we're going to do with this. Well, in this case, let's take everything that's not working in the vision that you truly want to have. Let's look at that. Let's look at, I'm home with my child all day because of the special needs. Well, what do we do to be able to change that if that's not giving you a break, right? Like, let's look at all those things that are holding you back. So between creating this leadership role for yourself personally in your life, I started taking my business coaching skills and I was like, wait a minute. And then I took my personal stuff that I've learned and I've created this system around getting people to be better leaders, and not leaders in just in companies, but in their own lives.
That's beautiful. That's empowering people, family empowerment, right? To become your own leader. And we're not talking about a head of state. We're not talking about the president. We're not talking about leader of your own life. Get it back, take it back and be a leader of it. Yeah. That is imperative. And I love the formula. Recognize what's going on. Give yourself permission to to do a lot of things. I think there's we can give ourselves permission to be sad. We can give ourselves
Yes.
permission to feel like, oh, why me? But we can also give ourselves permission to say, I'm making a decision. I'm making a move. And then the idea of hesitating, of course, a lot of people get stuck probably in a hesitation thing.
Yeah.
A lot of people like being in hesitation. Right?
Even though it's uncomfortable, it's comfortable because that's
It's
the
what you
known.
know. It's what
That's
you
the
know,
known.
what you
That's
And
why
then-
really, and I didn't mention this, the hesitation, the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, Mel Robbins uses that a lot, is that you just count backwards for that. Give yourself a pause to recreate.
But we're not talking hesitate for weeks. We're talking hesitate for 5 minutes or even 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Really, realistically count. Yeah, I heard that technique too. And then reevaluate where you are. And I think reevaluating is huge because what we're doing, I call it continuous quality improvement from the business world, right? You've got to continuously reevaluate in order to, is the plan working? Does it need to be tweaked? It's okay to pivot, is what you were getting at before without saying it, all right?
That's awesome. Yes, it is.
It's okay to pivot. That's what life is all about. We're constantly pivoting, right? And then really to enjoy what you're feeling and how you felt during your own recovery from this process. That's awesome. And it is. It's an empowerment thing. It's a road to reinvention, and it's a road to creating in yourself the leader that you needed to be, and your daughter needed you to be. Probably your ex-husband needed you to be. And your loved one, your family member, and frankly your family, your entire existence. So so your program, tell us about your program while we're here.
Okay. I have a self-discovery program which is based on my book.
A shameless plug.
That self-discovery program is a great basis to get started. It's just, you could either just get the book or do the coaching program that goes with it, but it's a good foundation to use with my clients.
Yeah.
And then through all of this process, I created this system called Take Back My Life System. It's a 12-week program, and it's based on 12 principles around taking back your life. What are the different areas in your life that if you knew a little bit better about who you were in that area, how at the end you could really be able to see about taking back your life. So that's that 12-week program. It comes with group coaching. It comes with videos, and it comes with a planner workbook that you could use during the process of it. And you get a strategy session with me at the end to kind of bring you all together and move you forward. So,
well, and I know that the thing that I can say unequivocally is that we all are lifelong learners. I mean, we always want to be learning, and we all have coaches. I think everybody should have a coach and a therapist, and they're not the same thing. But I know the work that you do, and I thank you for being here to share some of your knowledge with the group about the work that you do because of the place that you come from. And not only being a successful businesswoman for 28 years, but also coming through the chaos of addiction and mental illness that you came through. Really, your story could really help out a lot of people here, and in this formula and this idea of becoming the leader of who you are, and getting back, bringing it all full circle, all the way back to the beginning of our discussion, was defining who you really are, not what you are, but who you are.
Who are you, right?
Yeah. And then that will really be the first step along the yellow brick road to the end of this process. And that's what people need to do. And I feel so grateful for you and for other people like you who are willing to share your stories to help people not have to go through 16 years of it or 30 years of it. And, let's start, let's jump on this now.
Exactly. If I could say one last thing, is that if I looked at myself 14 years ago to where I am today, I would have never thought that I would be here. So just because someone can't see it doesn't mean they can't achieve it, right? So my life now is truly amazing. It's amazing. Now, I left that career as chief operating officer, started my business, and I've been in business now for 3 years, and I get to work from home. I have an amazing, loving family, a husband. I have a daughter. I have 2 stepchildren. I mean, I just have a very bountiful life compared to where I was.
Yeah.
And I didn't even know that I was worth having this that I have today. So
Because
I
of
want
the
people
chaos
to
that you were in.
understand that. Mm.
Because of chaos you were in, you didn't even have the chance to know that you could, and look where you are now. I mean, I don't even want, that's put a bow on it right there, tie it up. I thank you so much for doing this with
Thanks,
me
Mike.
and with being here for the group, and I don't even know what else to say. You said it
That's
perfectly.
my pleasure. I enjoyed this very much.
Yeah, thanks, Pam. I appreciate it.
Great. Thank you. Have a great day.
You too.